time. I'm here with my good friend Nick. How are you doing, bud?
What's up, Curtis? I'm doing
Dude,
pretty well. How about you?
good. I'm doing great. I'm off the rest of the day. Gonna chill, relax, hang out with my puppy, get some Raven time in.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So,
So,
Kurt, what is the news and happening in the movie world this week?
oh boy, let me tell you, is there some news this week? Thanks to the coronavirus, we have a bunch of delays. We already knew about the James Bond movie, No Time to Die. Now we also have A Quiet Place, which was supposed to come out next week, got pushed back, and it doesn't have a new date yet. They just said when everything kind of blows over, which I understand because that's a movie you need to see with the big crowd. It's all about the tension, and
Right.
it's a experience you need with other people. So I get that one, sure, sure. And then Disney also delayed Mulan, which fine, whatever, and New Mutants. And that's a movie that's been trying to come out since like 2017 and just keeps getting pushed back. Fox made it originally, and then they got bought by Disney. So I don't know. This might just be the final nail in the coffin for that movie. I don't think we'll ever see it. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I did finally see previews for it.
Mm,
I had been hearing about it since, like you said, like 2017, but now it's kind of like, well, it's either going to come out later this year, like everything seems to, or honestly, like if this whole thing blows over in time, the summer is gonna be just chaos.
it's gonna be stacked. We're gonna get like 3 movies a week. It's gonna be insane.
God, more than that, like, and not to mention all the sports happening. Like, we're gonna get hockey and basketball in the summer, which is something I've always wanted in general. Baseball needs some competition. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I can watch baseball for like a week and then I get burnt out on it. I need basketball, man. That's my bread and butter.
Oh man. Well,
So yeah, that thanks for coronavirus for that. Also, Tom Hanks, America's dad, American treasure Tom Hanks and his wife both have coronavirus. So screw you, coronavirus.
yes. Screw you, and thank you for taking my job.
Oh, but yeah, that's a big problem for arenas all over because every single sport is delayed or canceled right now. It's insane.
Concerts, events, everything.
Any
Well,
kind of big gathering. So yeah, imagine like trying to plan a wedding and having this happening.
your wedding canceled. Either that or you're going to have to cut down your list below 100 people. Have fun
It's
with
like
that.
Corona on your wedding day. Right. So, some pretty good news though is that Harvey Weinstein got sentenced to 23 years in prison. So, with his health and the way he is, that's definitely a life sentence. Like, there's no way he's gonna survive that.
It should have been more. That's all I'm going to say about that. It probably
He's
should have been more.
absolutely disgusting. He deserves every second of it.
I'm glad that he did actually get sentenced to actual jail time, though.
Yeah.
Gives me some hope for humanity.
Just a slither of hope, right as the apocalypse is setting in and everything's canceled and can't buy toilet paper or paper towels. But we got this one good thing going for us, and
You
that's
know
what
what else?
matters.
You know what else we got going? We still have our podcast.
We do still have our podcast. Great segue, my friend. So yeah, we're continuing our month of women in sci-fi, and I think we're both really excited for this one. This week we're talking about Annihilation.
Oh, this movie is you can take this movie any way you want to, and it's left so much up to interpretation. You can just watch it and have a good fun sci-fi movie, but you're not going to get the full effect of it. And basically at surface level, this movie is about um, basically five scientists that go into uh, find this alien form or whatever that's starting slowly expanding and taking over this area, and they're trying to figure out what it is, and a bunch of people have been sent in before, and they are basically on a suicide mission to find out what's up.
Yeah, they call it the Shimmer, and it just kind of mutates everything inside of it, and nobody's made it out, I don't think, at this point. But okay, I'll get to that in a minute. I think we were both really excited for this because we were playing Overwatch last night. We got online for a little bit, and we just started talking about the movie right away. At a certain point, I was like, "All right, I need to stop. We need to like save this for the podcast. Let's step it back a little bit." So now we're here.
Right, because I watched a lot of different interviews from different YouTubers or the actors themselves about the movie, and the the actors Natalie Portman and Tessa Thompson, everybody else on the movie, straight up was like, "We're leaving this to audience interpretation. This is the way it was meant to be." Obviously, there are definitely things for a reason. Uh, Natalie Portman pointed out, just be aware of she called them echoes or duplications that you see within the movie, and it kind of gives you an insight of what's happening.
hmm Yeah, and what a great cast, by the way. Everybody in this movie is on point, and some of them are some of my favorite actresses in the world right now, like Natalie Portman, Tessa Thompson, Jennifer Jason Leigh. Like, this movie is stacked. Oscar Isaac like shows up for a
Yeah,
little bit.
it's it's such a good movie, and um, there's so much speculation behind it about what it's actually about. And Alex Garland, this is his second movie, correct? Ex Machina was the first one.
Right? Yeah.
So I think his directorial debut was incredible, and I think his follow up with Annihilation was equally just as good.
Yeah, I love that he didn't fall into a trope of making one kind of movie. This is definitely a more like heady adventure movie with the sci-fi twist to it. Um, One thing I really wanted to mention before we get too deep into it is the opening scene. How did you feel about the fact that we have basically the whole movie spoiled for us in the first 2 minutes of the movie? We come out to Natalie Portman talking with the scientist and describing like what happened in the Shimmer before we even like see anything happen. A lot of people I could see being upset because of that, but I really like it because it kind of gets you into the universe in a good way and like prepared for what's about to happen.
So I think so. It actually plays very well into my interpretation of this movie, which is arguably what could either be a dream or a journey into the subconscious, into her subconscious, especially after what happened. In fact, it looks very much so like she is in a mental hospital in that first scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's had some mental break or something like that, which could definitely make sense. Also, um, Alex Garland, the director of the movie, stated that this movie is definitely based on a book,
Mm-hmm.
Annihilation, or series. But so he read the book once. He read the book once, and he said he absolutely loved it, and he didn't read it again. He said he wanted to make this movie as like a memory of that book and hitting the high points and almost like a dream,
Sure, yeah.
which is really interesting to me.
That kind of plays into the feel of the Shimmer too. It has a very dreamlike state. Um, they describe it like a prism. Like you go into it and all of your atoms are scattered, and it's a very like surreal but also very real like balance.
Right. And
Hang on.
honest,
Okay. People knocking.
oh no.
It's on the wall though, so it's the people just doing stuff. I don't know. Go ahead.
So honestly, I love the way the shimmer looks in this movie because the colors, they're so incredibly vibrant.
Mm,
They're very dreamlike, and every single thing and their mutation are very much so combinations of different like elements that already exist. Like you see the crystallized glass trees on the beach, which are actually a combination between the sand and the sun and those atoms.
hmm.
Because sand when it's heated to a certain degree, becomes glass.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And I guess we should say before we get too deep into it, yeah, everything in this movie is up to interpretation. That's kind of what makes it genius. That's like one of the purest art movies I can think of because art is supposed to be subjective and you bring your own experience and perspective into it. And this movie lends itself to so many different viewpoints. Um, but yeah, like the way the shimmer kind of the one interpretation I read, it kind of brings out what's inside of things. So like the monsters become more dangerous. We have the crocodile or whatever with all the like the different rows of teeth, and we have the bear that's enormous. And even Tessa Thompson's character, when she perishes, she turns into one of the flower people. So it's like the very beauty versus predatory like instincts. What's inside of you is like kind of what you become.
so at which point I will ask the question, so what does the affair play into this?
You know, I think that's just something that she brings to the table because as um Ventress mentions, they're all damaged goods at this point. They're all going into this with a very self-destructive like viewpoint on life, which you kind of need to because there's like they think zero chance of surviving this. They don't know how it's possible. And that's kind of the main theme of the movie is self-destruction. We all do things that we know are terrible for us, but we do it anyways. It's kind of like a self-attack. So yeah, that's what this movie is really focused on and hitting you in the head with is this image of self-destruction, and that's just her one of her like ways of destroying this marriage that she has. But also, you kind of balance with her husband's been gone too. Isn't he in the? Doesn't she think he's dead when she has the affair?
I thought the same thing too until I rewatched it the other night, and I had to pay very close attention because I had watched a couple YouTubers explaining things and whatnot, and one of them got really centrally focused on the affair, and in fact, the music in this movie centralizes around that with the song that
Mm-hmm.
plays throughout the movie, and I didn't think of it like this at first, and then it um like I thought the affair was just a side project basically,
Mm-hmm.
but I could see how it could actually be a central idea of the movie, especially in the art of self-destruction.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask you another question. Do you think that anybody else is real besides Lena and Kane? Do you think that the four other people she went into the shimmer with are actually real, or do you think that they're just parts of her?
When I interpret or when I watch it, I interpret it as they're all real and it's just this wild experience. Yeah, but I can definitely see now that you've said that where you could see it as her and her subconscious going into this.
It's it. I would definitely describe this movie as like borderline an acid trip or like some type of psychedelic if you think about it.
Yeah, especially the colors and the way things kind of like flow, especially
Yeah.
like the shimmer. Yeah,
So let's talk about the bear scene. I think that was such a pivotal point in this movie.
yeah. The group's kind of like ruptured at that point because we have the one girl who's tied everybody up and kind of taken over and destroying the mission, self destruction. And then we find out, you're talking about the house scene, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and
the
then
bear
we
house.
find out the bear can talk, kind of.
It it's such it's very horror esque. Like that scene is very terrifying.
Yeah, I love the image of like the bear with the skin melted off, and you just see like Artemis' skull, and it's got some of this DNA from one of the members that's already perished in it, so it's like screaming as this person.
Like that was the last thing that she's remembered for was like that scream.
Yeah.
Um, I think this definitely broke up the groups, like you said. I think this is fear manifesting itself, fear and paranoia manifesting itself into creating this monster. Hmm.
Sure, I could see that.
Yeah. I'm going real deep on the metaphors here with this movie.
Mr. X psychology major over here just getting real deep, getting to the point. I love it though.
I like have everything like spelled out on my notes over here about like how my interpretation is that basically this is her dealing with something that she did.
Mm.
And every single person that's in this movie, she, connects with Shepard first. And I think that Shepard would have been somebody that was like uh, a partner in the military when she was in the military with her, and like a um, representation of her, I guess is the right word I'm looking for there. And
Okay,
then
yeah.
like Ventress is the person that stays with her the longest, and it's basically like her super ego, which
Mm.
maybe Ventress had been like her psychologist at some point or something like that, and kind of gives her this balance between morals and um, the id, which is more of Anya's character. The paranoia, the uh, like ex addict, like that whole thing,
Sure,
the
yeah.
pleasure principle, if you will.
Hmm. No, that's definitely, there's a lot of merit to that. That's a good thought process. So that's really awesome. Good. Um, so what do you think if you're thinking of it like that, what does the lighthouse sequence like manifest as? Like, what do you see that as? How do you interpret that?
that's that's the point when Ventress leaves. You know, um, a lot of these shots too, if you notice, even when she's fighting the crocodile in the very beginning, it's just her. The shot is just her shooting at the crocodile. There's nobody else in the shot, even though they're around.
Hmm.
And then I think there's one or two other like hints to it. Oh, whenever she wakes up, she's by herself too. So we're kind of already getting this notion that she's by herself. And then in the house when she's doing testing on her DNA and everything like that, she's constantly shot by herself.
Yeah. Okay. Hadn't thought about that. That's a really interesting thought. Now that you're say that, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And then uh, the the whole lighthouse. The lighthouse can actually be a metaphor for the subconscious, like the pinnacle of getting into your psyche, basically. So that scene, Ventress leaves her, and that's when she has to come face to face with herself
Mm.
and what she did, and she can either accept what happened and become a better person from it, or she can self-destruct like Cain did.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really interesting scene. I did want to point out that the climax of this movie, the entire lighthouse sequence, is one of my favorite like climaxes to a movie in recent memory. It's just so interesting visually. There's so much going on, like action-wise. The build up to it is so great, and that final showdown with um, Lena and the like mirrored uh, shimmer version of Lena, like that is so cool. It's neat. Oh, I could watch that scene all day.
Oh yeah, it's in the build up to it, in the sound effects during that. Like, there's no dialogue
Hmm.
at all. It's after Ventress dissipates. Um, it's just Lena and this. supposed alien being that ends up mirroring her. So, and the connection that they have, and she realizes that there's no real escape, and she has to come to terms with this.
Mm-hmm. And bringing it back to self-destruction, the way that she ends this loop is by taking out the mirror version, and by doing that, she comes out, but she's taken a part of that with her. She's not the person that she used to be. We see in the final scene that her eyes are glowing. Part of the shimmer is still with her.
So that begs the question, do you think she actually did change, or do you think she's still, what's the difference between Kane and Lena in this situation?
I think that there's definitely more of the real Lena left because she survived, I guess. That's a great question. Like, because it comes back to the DNA, like, being like scattered when you go into the shimmer. So this version of Kane that we see, we saw that the real Kane didn't survive, but this shimmer version looks and acts like Kane. I think it's still a shimmer version of Kane, so I think it's less real. And the version of Lena is still mostly the real Lena. It just has some of the shimmer left in it. But it kind of begs the question if this is a happy ending or not, because the shimmer has kind of escaped into the real world now. And what does that mean for society?
Right. And the whole ending shot, I always thought it was interesting, that ending shot between them when he hugs her,
Mm-hmm.
and then it pans over and then it changes to blue. Almost this cold feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's it's not love for sure. It's an understanding, a mutual understanding.
Right, yeah. After everything they've been through and all the destruction and chaos of the Shimmer, yeah, and they're not even fully themselves anymore. So, like, what they had before is definitely gone out the window. And we saw that even when Kane came back the first time, and he's just so traumatized and dead in the eyes before he even gets sick. Like, we know he's a deeply changed person.
So let me ask you this. Going back to the bear scene for a hot second. Uh, did you notice that we see, like, that's Lena's house
Mm-hmm.
that we're in the bear scene? It's a duplication
Mm-hmm.
into the shimmer. Is there any type of, how do I word this? Do you think it's notable that we see the full affair before we see the bear?
Yeah, I think so. I think that could be a manifestation of the affair in the Shimmer is this thing that comes and destroys the house and kills everybody inside of it, or tries to kill everybody inside of it. I think the bear could be a representation for the affair for sure,
Interesting.
or for the other characters, what self-destruction means for them. But since Lena is our main character, it kind of all revolves around her.
All right. So I'll ask you. I have two more questions for you, and you already know these, so you're not put on the spot. So the first question is, what is the significance of having five female crew instead of either co-op or male?
So yeah, I've been thinking about that one, and I think he's definitely trying to say something about the gender difference, but the way I see it, it could be two different explanations depending on how you want to interpret it. Either they're sending in the all-woman crew because women are seen as more organized and uh, less distracted by things. Like we saw the men's crew like fall apart. They were in utter chaos. They were so disturbed and like went insane in there. It's also could be the fact that they're all scientists. They all have that scientific mind and the scientific mission, and that's what kind of keeps them on the tracks. So I think being scientists and women kind of kept them to be the more successful because they tried sending in all men and that just didn't work.
Was it technically successful because the only person that came back was Lena?
It was more successful because Lena still made it out.
Well, I guess you could technically argue that Kane also made it out as well.
But did he?
Fair enough. Fair point. So, what was your interpretation of this movie?
Yeah, coming back to self-destruction, that's the big theme for me, and it's something that we see time and time again. And I don't know if I look too deeply into the meanings of everything with this movie. It's more just the themes and the visuals that keep popping up. So it's just for me a really interesting world and interesting mind space. Like it's definitely a lot to think about. I don't dive too deep into it because that's just a lot, and my brain goes in a million different directions. But just the overall themes of self-destruction and trauma, um, coping with a situation that you're entirely unprepared for. Those are the things that stuck most with me.
That's awesome. Like this movie is so enjoyable whether or not you want to go that deep into it, or if you're looking for a movie that's has a definite ending and a clear cut, then I would not recommend this for
No,
you.
it definitely leaves a lot open. You gotta you gotta come ready to pay attention, ready to make your own opinions, which is something I'm never good at. I can never like forge an opinion. When you give me two options, I'm gonna see the best in both of them.
I'm the same way. This is because we're like our birthdays are a week apart, dude. Like we're too much alike.
The stars aligned, and we are two versions of the same person, just like the Shimmer versions of each other.
Like you're me in a parallel universe.
Yes.
I'm totally fine with that. You want to hear something funny before we kind of wrap this up? So, like, I knew we were doing this movie, and I actually completely forgot about the whole entire like crocodile scene in this movie. There was like certain things I couldn't remember from it because I'd seen it like once before a while back, and I remembered like certain like little tidbits here and there, but I just didn't remember all of it until I started watching it. About two
Right.
days, yeah, like 2 days before I started watching this movie, I had this dream. I had this like pet alligator. Like
It was a premonition, my friend.
I
You were
know.
linked with this movie already. That's funny. But yeah, that's one thing that stuck with me. I didn't really remember a lot of the plot, but it was all these images. So like the albino alligator, the huge bear, the flower people. That's something just so haunting and memorable.
That one stuck with me more than anything else is the flower people.
Yeah, this movie's so gorgeous. Shouts out to the cinematographer.
Oh,
It was so
absolutely.
great.
And all the CGI is just incredible as well, which is like kind of rare that you get a beautiful movie with integrated CGI into it.
Hmm. Yeah, it did a lot of cool things. It did something I like that Midsummer does too, where like the camera gets kind of wavy and out of focus. So like you see the person looking at their hand and it gets all wavy. Yeah, it's I
Yeah.
love when movies do that. It's so fun.
My skin is crawling.
And just so many haunting images. The scene of the male scientist when they have the parasite in his stomach and he's cutting his stomach open. I had literally had to look away from that scene. I never have to like not look at something, but that scene where he's cutting the stomach, I could not do it.
I mean, it definitely adds a whole element to it that it was shot. I love that scene because it was shot like it was actually being taken by a member in their crew.
Hmm.
Like found footage. Like that's what I like about those couple scenes. It looks like found footage, and I think they did such a good job with those scenes because it definitely like makes your skin crawl. Like when he's getting the C-section and shit, you're like,
Hmm.
ah.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this is just overall a really great movie. I'd highly recommend it. Take whatever interpretation you will out of it, get whatever you want out of it. There's something for I think everybody to kind of chew on with this movie, and that's kind of what makes great art.
Kurt, you got anything else to add, my dude?
I don't think so. Just we have Twitter, we have YouTube. If you want to suggest movies or just have a comment conversation with us, there we go. So yeah, anything like that, just come talk to us. We still want to continue Women of Sci-Fi. I think we are maybe thinking about Ex Machina for next week to kind of keep the Alex Garland trend going.
Yes, hopefully, unless somebody has another suggestion for us that they would rather see us do.
Yeah.
But until next week, we will conclude this week's episode. As always, thank you, Slow Glows, for letting us use your music. I am wearing your t-shirt today.
Yeah, Slow Glows. I'm so sorry your guys' tour didn't work out because of the stupid virus.
No, I think they're still on tour.
I saw a post earlier that Kelly had posted they're not going to go out, they're going to end their tour. Yeah,
Aww.
they had to cancel some dates because venues were dropping out, and, it's just
Anyways, you should definitely go listen to their music still. Super
agreed.
good.
Yeah.
I think they've got some music about to drop some new stuff regardless. Um, and thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode about Annihilation.
Yeah, thank you. Stay safe. Wash your hands.
Wash your damn dirty hands. And stay beautiful.
Beautiful.